tuned into News and Views on Salam Media. My name is Zai Jalbert. I'm standing in for Julie Ali this morning, of course, the final edition of News and Views for the year. Thank you so much for tuning in. Now, a Free State man has been released on bail of 20,000 Rand after his arrest for attempted murder in connection with the confrontation with two teenagers at the Maselspoort Resort and Conference Centre near Bloemfontein. A video clip shared on social media captured part of the incident at the resort over the Christmas break. It depicted white men ordering a black teenager out of the water, then hitting him back in, grabbing a child by the throat and pulling his hair as the situation escalated. One man was also seen holding a youngster under the water. Two other accused, Johan Nel from Brandvoort and Johannes Stefanus van der Westhuizen from Bothaville, appeared in the Bloemfontein Magistrates Court on Wednesday, where they were charged with assault, common and criminal injury. Their trial resumes in January. To discuss this further, we are now joined by Hoantabale Nudoba, who is AZAPO's Secretary for Publicity and Information. Good morning, sir, and welcome to the show.
Good morning, sir, and thank you for having us.
All right. I think let's begin with your reaction as AZAPO to the granting of 20,000 Rand bail to the third suspect in this incident.
Well, we as AZAPO are generally disgusted. Well, one cannot say disappointed in the sense that this to us as AZAPO came as an expectation because since 1994, this country has not dealt decisively with the scourge and a sin against humanity called apartheid, the effects thereof that manifest in the form of racism. Therefore, the problem that we see or that we saw unfolding in the Bloemfontein Magistrates Court is what we call the manifestation of systemic racism, where the systems, including the jurisprudence and the courts, would basically be apologetic to white racists. Now, the viewers of Salam Media and the listeners would know that in 1994, we were sold a lie, what in AZAPO we call a mirage of uhuru, of liberation. And things like this, when they happen, like what happened at the Maselspoort resort, which led into Kobus Klassen getting a 20,000 bail, indicates to us that the jurisprudence in this country favors the rich and white racists, but it is anti-black. So we can understand Schedule 5 offense, attempted murder, a person gets away with a slap in the wrist of 20,000. And to add insult to injury, because as AZAPO, we were in court on both days, particularly even yesterday, where the state, the prosecution, the state did not oppose bail. But me and you know, and the viewers of Salam Media know, that black people, poor people, if they were facing a Schedule 5 offense, they would be in jail now. They would be in prison now, awaiting trial up until January. But this racist, this unapologetic and unrepentant racist is walking the streets as we talk, together with these two co-accused who are also charged. You see, with a common assault and criminal injury, what this bourgeois democracy and false liberation or freedom has brought to us is to basically trivialize when black people are being demeaned, when black people are being disrespected, when the dignity of black people is dragged in the mud, and people can violate black people, then that becomes trivialized as in criminal injury, common assault. Those are not serious offenses. That the person, even prosecution, not arguing. The magistrate was at pains to ask the prosecution, are you really sure that this particular accused should really be granted bail? How safe is he? Because it's a serious matter in terms of the people. Listen to what the prosecutor says. He says, the community is okay, the nation is fine, people will not take law into their hands because they are law abiding and they will be able to understand. Now, that is utter disrespect. And that is now what we call a house nigger mentality par excellence. That is the problem that we have as an AZAPO. We believe this guy, Kobus Klassen, should be rotting in jail as we speak.
Now, I do understand that your organization, AZAPO, has been following these developments, and as you mentioned, you guys were also in court as well. And then some of your members also met with the station commander of the Glen Police Station in Bloemfontein and attempted to open a case of hate crimes against the three men seen in the video. However, what you did find when you got there was that you were unable to open a case or lay charges rather of hate crimes and racism because the system of the South African police services did not make provision for charges of racism or hate crimes. Do tell us more about that.
No, thank you very much, Zaid, and also the listeners and viewers of Salam Media. You see, what AZAPO wanted to demonstrate to the Azanian nation and to all people is to demonstrate clearly beyond a reasonable doubt that the jurisprudence in this country, the systems that are meant to help us to uproot, right, the evils of the past are not there. We as AZAPO put what we experienced at the Glen Police Station on Wednesday, we put it at the doorstep of parliamentarians because they are legislators. They are the people that must legislate so that then the bills come out and then the president must sign them into law. So what has happened, Zaid and viewers and listeners of Salam Media, we inherited an evil system, a corrupt system that continues to perpetuate the oppression, the dehumanization, the degrading of Black people. Because how can it be 28 years after 1994, after so-called democracy, how can it be that we don't have legislation that is able to help us to decisively uproot and deal with racism? How come? And then people say we are a non-racial state. And that's where, Zaid and viewers of Salam Media and listeners, that's where the problem is. The problem is we are eggshell walking on what we know is a sin against humanity. So what we are supposed to be having is to be speaking, to expressing what is our attitude against racism. Now, if you say you are a non-smoker, Zaid, you don't tell me what is your attitude towards smoking. You are just saying it is there and you decide to be non-it. But if you say you are an anti-smoker, you are saying, with all intents and purposes, you are against smoking, you are going to fight smoking. Now, we should be speaking first and foremost about anti-racism. That should be the pillar that will inform the narrative in society of dealing, or rather of uprooting racism. Secondly, it will now then manifest in our legislation, our acts of parliament that we need to have. So we have demonstrated that it becomes difficult for a citizen in this country to become law abiding. Because what law are you abiding to? A law that permits you being violated, like those two Black kids were violated. And Zaid, the violation of those two kids in Maselspoort was not just them being violated. It was a symbolic violation of the dignity of Black people. So Blackness was being violated, Zaid. And we are saying it's because the ruling party, by omission, the governing party has been protecting racists who we know have years of practice of enforcing apartheid. They have basically, by omission, did not enforce the laws that would be able to deal decisively with racism. So that's what we were able to unearth. And the police and the station commandant people, you could see the poor fellows, their hands were tied. And as we were explaining to them the inherent problems, they ended up agreeing with us that indeed what has happened, and some of them, most of them are black people. So we are sitting around a round table with black people, showing them that we have inherited a system. Now, Zaid, that's why AZAPO speaks of systemic racism. To say the systems that we have inherited are perpetuating racism. And that is what a relionized AZAPO is fighting, to say dismantle this particular system, right? And tell our people. So when we stand up now as an action-oriented organization, no one can then accuse AZAPO of just grandstanding. We were there, we allowed ourselves to go through the process, and we showed and demonstrated that the process is not adequate enough to deal with the challenges. Now, this is what we call abdication of responsibility, lack of decisive leadership. What we call, Zaid and the listeners and viewers of Salam Media, eggshell walking on something that we need to deal with decisively.
All right. So I think essentially what you're saying is that the current system and the laws in place are inadequate to be able to combat racism. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. Not only are they inadequate, they are in fact non-existent. So
Yeah.
we are then saying you need an overhaul of the jurisprudence. That's what we are saying. I mean, we are based on some nonsensical Roman Dutch law. I mean, we are not in Dates land, but we are using Roman Dutch law. All right, that's laughable. We've got our own indigenous knowledge systems of how to deal with these issues. So we need to get into those, what people call customary law and whatever. These are indigenous knowledge systems that we need through what we call, when we recraft another problem, Zaid, this constitution, this bourgeois constitution that doesn't serve our people. We need to take that constitution and throw it into the dustbin and craft a new constitution through a constituent assembly, where we'll get the views of all the constituencies in this country to make up the supreme law, which is the constitution that will inform the jurisprudence in this particular country. So that's what we are saying in AZAPO. Not only are these laws inadequate, in fact, they are non-existent.
All right, Mr. Natoba, I think this is a really interesting conversation, which definitely does deserve a lot more time than we've been allotted. But I think we are pressed for time, so I think, just to close up, then I do want to pick up on something that was mentioned in a statement released by AZAPO recently, in which the organization promised to make, quote, the life of all white racists living hell. Perhaps you could elaborate on what this form of recourse might be.
Yeah, well, look, for us as AZAPO, when we say that, we are saying we have come to realize that white racists have demonstrated. You look at a lady who was called Sparrow, who called us baboons. You look at another one called Belinda McGaw, who basically went out to demean not only black people, but to demean womanhood, right? During a month where we're dealing with 16 days against GBVF. Then you've got these racists at this particular resort. But not only that, the Free State have shown to be the mecca of racism. You'll remember some years back the incident that happened at Free State University, where white kids were mixing urine and giving it to black adults to drink. At Stellenbosch, a student just getting in and urinating on the property of a black student. Now, what that says, Zaid and the listeners and viewers of Salam Media, is that this learned behavior perpetuates because of power. Now, you see, racism is able to prevail and persist because of economic power and to some degree political power. Now, when you look at our dispensation, it is such that those that were our erstwhile oppressors are continuing to have it as it was before 1994. So nothing has changed fundamentally for Black people. So we are then saying, as a religionized AZAPO, which says we are going to fight to restore the dignity of Black people. And we are saying, Zaid and the listeners, that you touch Black people at your own peril. So when we say we are going to make their life difficult, we are saying we are going to make them, because the laws in this country and the politicians in this country don't want to do it. So we are going to show them that because you don't want to live with us as members of one race, the human race, you don't belong here. So we are going to make it uncomfortable for them. We will go to their businesses, for instance, and we will agitate to tell them and tell those that are their would-be customers and their customers to say they must isolate them. So that's what we mean. They must be isolated. And in fact, Zaid and the listeners and viewers of Salam Media, we want to assist these unrepentant, unapologetic white racists. We want to assist them to exit the country. So we want to help them to go to the nearest airport so that they must leave Azania, because Azania is the land, beautiful land of peaceful people, of people who believe that we want to bestow to this country a humane face. We want to establish as AZAPO an egalitarian society where all of us, you'll not have minorities, you'll not have majorities, but you'll have people. You'll have the Azanian people, because all of us are members of one race, the human race. So we want to send out this message to say, as a religionized AZAPO, we are going to make your life hell because you don't belong in the society. Firstly, we will try to go the legal means that you must be locked up and be removed from society because you are a toxin to society. So we cannot, Zaid, have toxins in our society. People that don't want to help us to build one Azania, one nation. An Azania that is based on an economic system which says that all people shall participate in the economy and the land shall belong to the original people of this country, which is Black people. White people must know that this is not their land. They will stay in this country on the terms of Black people. It happens all over the world. All right. You have seen what happened during the Ukraine war, the Ukraine-Russia war. Racism was there again. Black people were taken out of the trains where people were escaping from Ukraine, and then white people were put in. It's this mentality of superiority. So white people, wherever we as Black people confront them, and they don't respect us, they disrespect us, they do that at their own peril. And the peril is removal from society. And as you will be with us, as we help you to exit, we must make your state to become uncomfortable. So that is the message that AZAPO is sending out. A religionized AZAPO, which is a defender of Black dignity, a defender of Black people, an organization that says Black people have been sold alive. Come 2024, we get into that government, that parliament, we change all these neoliberal documents, neoliberal constitution, neoliberal jurisprudence must be overhauled. That is the message of a religionized AZAPO.
Okay, all right. I think this is a really interesting conversation, and I do hope that we can continue with this, of course, in time to come. But that's where we'll leave it for this morning. Time is against us. Thank you so much for your time.
No, thank you very much, Zaid, and the listeners and viewers of Salam Media. We say may they have a wonderful 2023, and we say from AZAPO, shukran.
To you as well. Thank you. That was Khan Tabale Ndoba, who is the Secretary for Publicity and Information at AZAPO. Coming up next is Zainul Abidin Kaji from OCAF SA, speaking about promoting self-reliance and sustainability. Please do stay tuned.